Hi, my name is John. In this video, we're practicing Bagua with the position action method. Bagua is a Chinese martial art known for its circle walking training. In our method, we base everything on three phases: defend, position, and action. For Bagua, this means that the circle walking is the time to train defense and changing position before going into action. The advantage of the circle walking as a method of training is that it allows you to develop an awareness of angle while defending and positioning. Every step around the circle while facing a center point is a change of angle. This means that when facing an opponent, you can change angle with a single step. In application, there's generally no need for more than one or two steps in order to get into a position where you can make an action on an opponent. When practicing with a Bagua mentality, the emphasis is on the palms and grips as contact points, and the application of leverage as a source of power. This means that when you're defending, you're looking for a position to take that will serve as a fulcrum for your action, which will be the lever. Aikido and Aiki Jiu-Jitsu methods can be understood as having the same goal. In Aiki-based arts, there's a high value placed on distinguishing between the initial moment of the action and the follow-through of the action. The reason being because the leverage-based power is really a method for having power at the initial moment, or the very start, when your action is separating from your position. Because the correct position gives you power at the start of the action, the rest of the action, the follow-through, can be used to extend the effect of the initial power. That's why the so-called internal power of the fulcrum allows for effective takedowns and controls as well as strikes. Because you have power at the start, so you can follow through and literally take someone down to the ground in a single action. By distinguishing between the initial moment and the follow through, you can clarify how the position gives power to the start of the action. Why students tend to fail is because they don't have the positional power at the start of the action, but they still try to follow through and end up muscling it. One issue that the position action method can help people with is the tendency to fake the reaction in Aikido techniques because people think that there should be a big effect, but the power simply isn't there. By following the three phases of defend, position, action in every technique, there's the same kind of power as a double leg takedown, where the body is putting the opponent off balance right at the start of the action, which makes the follow through possible. This can even be applied to punching, where the position allows the punch to act as a lever with power from the start instead of having to do a lot of movement to get power. When defending against strikes, the defensive state with agile positioning allows you to control distance and guard yourself while looking for the moment to take position and attack. Training the position action method is not a secret that having learned it, you can immediately apply, but it does provide a methodical approach to training that can shorten the time it takes to develop useful skill. With traditional martial arts such as Bagua or Aikido, it's very possible to fail to ever develop a useful skill. Why is that? Because without clearly training the defensive attitude and the application of leverage for any given technique, the movements themselves have no function. If you think the function of the movement is to throw someone, twist their arm, pin them, strike them, etc., then you're confusing the desired effect with the technique itself. The technique needs to have leverage built into it from the start. The only way you can start to have the desired effect is if you actually have the power to have that effect built into the technique. The goal of the position action method of training is to be entirely modular, meaning that any technique can be plugged in to the action and become trainable and applicable in a practical way. For this video, it's Bagua-based movements, but you could even take a strike from boxing or Muay Thai and train it by this method of distinguishing between position and action. The reason that we focus on traditional martial arts is that traditional martial arts totally depend on the correct usage of leverage in order to work. We can understand why that is by looking at the history. Historically, martial arts were something that was applied as a part of armored combat with weapons. The only kind of force that could be useful against an armored opponent is a force that can unbalance the opponent and make them vulnerable for further attacks, generally with a weapon. That means that your empty hand skill couldn't just hit the opponent. It had to hit them in a way that made them fall over or lose their balance. Only by learning to take positions that leveraged your body structure was it possible to unbalance the opponent. So martial art was developed as a way of training the skill of taking these positions that gave you enough leverage in your actions in order to take down the opponent and finish them with a weapon. All training is dependent on your goals. For us, the goal is to revitalize traditional martial arts training, not to reconstruct the past, but to give people a way to develop an extremely practical self-defense skill in a way that is actually mentally clarifying and physically healthy. The emphasis is on the technique. What is necessary for a technique to be effective? Arts such as Bagua and Aikido that have movements that seem unnecessary and intentionally exaggerated, and sadly that is often the case, still connect back to something extremely useful. But the modern age has largely lost the way of understanding traditional martial arts. The loss of understanding is at the level of training method. The question is how to train the technique in a way that they actually work. The answer is by distinguishing between position and action, with the understanding that the position has to provide enough leverage so that the opponent can be affected at the start of the action. The advantages of size, strength, and speed are diminished the more clearly you can embody the core principles. How is that? Because the person who can better take position from defending will seem to be stronger, and the person who has the better timing to make their actions at the moment they take position will seem like the faster one, and the person with better leverage skill overall will seem like the bigger one. It's not that technique beats size, strength, and speed. It's that true technique gives you superior size, strength, and speed at the moment you apply it. Thanks for watching. I hope this video can be helpful in your own training. See you next time.
That's a half action. Positioning is like this, like I'm grab. That's that. Right, so again, it's like the extending that. Right, right. Exactly. So if you can take a position, you can move it. Yeah. But you can't. Position. Yes. But that's kind of the concept of it, right? So if this is the position, the action, then I need to practice it from defense. Positioning action.